The executive floor of V Group Tower smelled of polished marble, expensive leather, and the faint metallic tang of power. On the 58th floor, silence reigned like a religion. No one raised their voice. No one laughed too loudly. And no one, absolutely no one, made President Isolde Voss wait. Kara Leaves knew this better than most. She stood outside the massive oak doors of the presidential office, clutching a black leather portfolio against her slim chest. Her short black hair was neatly styled, the kind of pixie cut that looked effortlessly chic but took 20 minutes every morning to perfect. Her brown eyes, framed by delicate lashes, flicked toward the clock on the wall. 7:52 a.m. 8 minutes before the official start of the day, yet she already felt the familiar knot of tension in her stomach. President Isolde Voss didn't tolerate tardiness, even from the universe itself. Kara smoothed down her crisp white blouse and adjusted the thin black belt around her narrow waist. At 26, she was painfully aware that her petite, almost fragile figure made some people underestimate her. They saw a delicate girl who might snap like a twig. What they didn't see was the steel in her spine that had kept her alive in this cutthroat company for 4 years. She knocked twice, sharp, respectful, exactly as instructed on her first day as executive assistant 3 months ago. "Come in." The voice that answered was low, cool, and carried the subtle rasp of someone who spoke only when necessary. Kara pushed the door open and stepped inside. President Isolde Voss sat behind her enormous obsidian desk like a queen on a throne of glass and steel. At 34, she was the youngest president in V Group's history, and she wore the title like armor. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp, aristocratic features that looked carved from marble, Isolde had jet-black hair swept back in a severe style that accentuated her high cheekbones and piercing steel-gray eyes. She wore a tailored charcoal suit that hugged her frame with masculine precision, broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist, long legs crossed with effortless dominance. A silver watch glinted on her wrist, the only accessory she allowed herself. She didn't look up immediately. Her long fingers continued typing on her laptop with clinical efficiency. Kara waited, heart beating a little too fast, the way it always did in this room. Finally, Isolde lifted her gaze. "Report," she said simply. "Good morning, President Voss," Kara began, keeping her voice steady and professional. "Your schedule for today: 8:30 a.m. strategy meeting with the European division, heads via video conference. 10:15 a.m. contract review with legal on the Meridian acquisition. 12:30 p.m. lunch with the Minister of Commerce. I've already confirmed the private room at Lesbian. Then at 2 p.m. Cancel the lunch," Isolde interrupted, leaning back in her leather chair. Her eyes scanned Kara from head to toe in one swift, unreadable motion. "Tell the minister I'm unavailable. Reschedule for next week. And bring me the updated financial projections for Meridian before the strategy meeting." Kara's pen flew across her tablet. "Understood. Would you like coffee or black? No sugar." And Kara? Kara froze, fingers hovering over the screen. Isolde's gaze lingered on her a second longer than usual. "You look tired. Did you sleep at all last night?" The question caught Kara off guard. In 3 months of working directly under the Ice Queen, Isolde had never asked about her personal well-being. Not once. "I stayed late finishing the revised proposal you requested, ma'am. It's on your desk." Isolde's lips pressed into a thin line. Not quite a frown, but close. "I don't pay you to run yourself into the ground. Go home at a reasonable hour tonight. That's an order." Kara felt heat creep up her neck. "Yes, President Voss." As she turned to leave, she caught the faintest trace of Isolde's cologne, something woody, expensive, and undeniably commanding. It made something low in her belly tighten uncomfortably. She hated how her body reacted to this woman. Back at her desk just outside the presidential office, Kara tried to focus. She arranged the coffee exactly how Isolde liked it, piping hot, in the matte black mug with no logo. She double-checked every file, every timestamp, every minor detail that could possibly displease the unapproachable president. But her mind kept drifting. It had been happening more often lately. The way Isolde's voice dropped when she was deep in thought. The rare, fleeting half-smile she gave when a deal closed perfectly. The way her long fingers drummed against the desk when she was impatient. And worse, much worse, Kara had started noticing the way Isolde looked at women during business dinners. Cool, appraising, predatory. Like she was sizing up prey. Kara had personally arranged 3 different dates for her boss in the past month. All elegant, ambitious women from powerful families. All of them had left the building with flushed cheeks and slightly trembling hands. Each time, something ugly and sharp had twisted in Kara's chest. She told herself it was nothing. Professional concern. Maybe even protectiveness. President Isolde was notoriously difficult to please. Her family had been trying to match her with suitable partners for years, turning the search into something resembling a silent auction among the elite. Isolde had rejected every single candidate with clinical detachment. She doesn't need anyone, Kara muttered under her breath, organizing the morning briefings. She's perfect exactly as she is. But the lie tasted bitter. At 8:25 a.m., Kara entered Isolde's office again to deliver the financial projections. The president was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out over the glittering city skyline, one hand in her pocket. The morning light carved sharp shadows across her face, making her look almost unreal. Kara set the documents down quietly. Anything else, President Voss? Isolde didn't turn around immediately. When she did, her steel-gray eyes pinned Kara in place. "You've been working for me for 3 months now," she said, voice low and measured. "Tell me honestly, Kara, are you afraid of me?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Kara's breath caught. Her slim fingers tightened around the edge of the desk. She thought of all the rumors. President Voss was cold, ruthless, unfeeling. People called her the Ice Queen behind her back. Some even whispered she had no heart at all. But Kara had seen the other side in tiny, stolen moments. The way Isolde quietly doubled the bonuses for overworked departments. The way she remembered the name of every janitor on the executive floor. The way her presence made Kara feel safe, protected, even when it terrified her. "No," Kara answered softly, surprising herself with her honesty. "I'm not afraid of you. I respect you. There's a difference." A ghost of something, amusement? Interest? Flickered across Isolde's sharp features. "Good," she murmured, "because I don't tolerate cowards in my inner circle." She stepped closer, towering over Kara's petite frame. For one dizzying second, Kara could smell her cologne again, feel the heat radiating from her body. Isolde reached past her to pick up the projections, their arms brushing. Kara's pulse skyrocketed. Isolde paused, eyes narrowing slightly, as if she could hear the frantic beat of Kara's heart. "Something wrong, little rabbit?" she asked, voice dropping an octave. Kara's cheeks burned. "And no, ma'am." Isolde studied her for a long moment, then straightened. "Prepare the conference room." "And Kara?" "Yes. Don't forget what I said earlier. Reasonable hours tonight. I won't have my best assistant collapsing on me." With that, President Isolde Voss turned back to her desk, cold and untouchable once more. But as Kara left the office on shaky legs, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Something small, dangerous, like the first crack appearing in a glacier. She pressed a hand to her burning cheek and whispered to herself, "Get a grip, Kara leaves. She's your boss. Nothing more." Yet deep down, she already knew she was lying. And somewhere behind those heavy oak doors, the Ice Queen allowed herself the tiniest, almost imperceptible smile. The city lights glittered like scattered diamonds against the velvet black sky when Kara finally stepped out of the elevator on the executive floor again. It was past 9:30 p.m. The entire building had emptied hours ago, leaving only the soft hum of air conditioning and the distant echo of her own footsteps. She balanced a takeout bag in one hand and a fresh stack of documents in the other. President Isolde had canceled her last 2 meetings and buried herself in the Meridian acquisition papers. Kara knew better than to leave without making sure her boss had eaten something. She knocked softly on the heavy oak door. A muffled enter came from inside. The office was dimly lit, only the desk lamp and the glow of 3 large monitors illuminating the space. Isolde sat with her suit jacket discarded over the back of her chair, the top 2 buttons of her crisp white shirt undone. The sleeves were rolled up to her elbows, revealing toned forearms and the silver watch that never left her wrist. Her usually impeccable hair had a few strands falling across her forehead, making her look strangely human, approachably handsome. Kara's mouth went dry. "I brought dinner," she said, trying to keep her voice light. "Thai basil chicken and rice. No peanuts, just how you like it. And the latest projections from finance. They made the adjustments you requested." Isolde leaned back, rubbing the bridge of her nose. For the first time all day, she looked tired. "You were supposed to go home at a reasonable hour," she said, voice low and rough from hours of speaking. Kara set the food down on the side table near the couch. "So were you, President Voss." A beat of silence stretched between them. Then, unexpectedly, Isolde let out a short, dry chuckle. The sound sent a shiver racing down Kara's spine. She had never heard her laugh before, not even a small one. "You're getting bold, little rabbit." Kara felt her cheeks heat up at the nickname again. She busied herself unpacking the food to hide her reaction. "Someone has to make sure you don't starve while conquering the business world." Isolde stood up and walked over, her tall frame casting a long shadow. She stopped just behind Kara, close enough that the younger woman could feel the warmth radiating from her body. For several seconds, neither of them moved. "You care too much," Isolde murmured, her voice dropping into that hoarse, melancholy tone that made Kara's knees weak. "It's dangerous in this industry." Kara turned slowly, finding herself trapped between the table and the president's imposing presence. Their eyes met, brown against steel gray. "Maybe I like dangerous things," Kara whispered before she could stop herself. The air thickened instantly. Isolde's gaze darkened, dropping for the briefest moment to Kara's lips before flicking back up. The tension was electric, heavy with everything neither of them had dared to name. Then Isolde stepped back, breaking the spell. "Eat with me," she ordered, voice returning to its usual cool command. "I'm not in the mood to eat alone tonight." They sat on the leather couch by the window, the city sparkling far below them. For the next 20 minutes, they ate in surprisingly comfortable silence, interrupted only by occasional comments about the acquisition. Kara found herself stealing glances at Isolde's hands, strong, elegant fingers that moved with such deliberate grace. She remembered how those same fingers had looked wrapped around a wine glass during last week's dinner with potential partners. Jealousy, hot and unwelcome, twisted in her chest again. "President Voss," Kara began hesitantly, poking at her rice. "About next week's charity gala, your family sent another list of potential matches. 3 names this time, all from very influential families. Should I arrange preliminary meetings?" Isolde's chopsticks paused midair. She set them down slowly, her expression icing over. "Throw it away." Kara blinked. "But your mother specifically." "I said throw it away." Isolde's tone left no room for argument. "I'm not interested in their little auction. If I want a woman, I'll choose her myself." The possessiveness in that statement sent an involuntary thrill through Kara. She lowered her gaze, heart pounding. "Of course," she murmured. Silence fell again, heavier this time. Isolde suddenly leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. "Why do you care so much about who I see, Kara?" It's my job to manage your schedule," Kara replied carefully, but her voice wavered. "Is that all it is?" Isolde's eyes were sharp, searching. "Just your job." Kara's breath hitched. The question felt like walking along the edge of a cliff. One wrong step and she would fall. She forced a small, professional smile. What else could it be? Isolde stared at her for a long moment, then stood up abruptly, towering over the couch. "It's late. You should go home." Kara rose as well, disappointment and relief warring inside her. "Yes, ma'am. I'll see you tomorrow." She was almost at the door when Isolde's voice stopped her. "Kara." She turned. Isolde stood by her desk, hands in her pockets, looking every inch the untouchable ice queen once more. "Thank you for the food," she said quietly. "And for staying." Kara's heart did a painful flip. She nodded quickly and slipped out before she could do something stupid, like beg for more than polite gratitude. The next 3 days passed in a blur of endless meetings, tight deadlines, and stolen moments that left Kara reeling. On Wednesday, they were trapped in the private elevator together after a late-night investor dinner. The moment the doors closed, the air changed. Isolde stepped closer, backing Kara gently against the mirrored wall. Their bodies were inches apart. "You're wearing a new perfume," Isolde observed, voice low. Her breath brushed against Kara's ear. "It suits you." Kara's hands trembled at her sides. "Do you like it?" Isolde's gray eyes darkened. For a heartbeat, Kara thought she might kiss her. Instead, the taller woman reached up and gently tucked a stray strand of black hair behind Kara's ear, her fingers lingering against the sensitive skin of her neck. The elevator dinged. Isolde stepped back as if nothing had happened, leaving Kara breathless and aching. On Thursday afternoon, in the quiet copier room on the 57th floor, their hands brushed while reaching for the same document. Kara looked up into Isolde's face and saw raw hunger there, quickly masked, but not fast enough. "You're playing a dangerous game, little rabbit," Isolde had whispered, voice hoarse. "Then stop me," Kara had challenged softly, surprising even herself with her boldness. Isolde had only smiled, that rare, predatory half-smile, and walked away. By Friday evening, Kara was a mess of nerves and unspoken desire. She was alone in the office again, organizing Isolde's desk for the next week, when the president returned from an emergency board meeting. Isolde looked tense, jaw tight, shoulders rigid. Without thinking, Kara stepped forward. "Bad meeting." Isolde exhaled sharply. The usual politics. Impulsively, Kara reached out and adjusted the collar of Isolde's shirt, her fingers brushing warm skin. "You'll handle it. You always do." Isolde caught her wrist gently but firmly, holding it in place against her chest. Kara could feel the strong, steady beat of her heart. Their eyes locked. The tension snapped. Isolde pulled her closer, one arm wrapping around Kara's slim waist as their lips crashed together in a fierce, hungry kiss. Kara gasped into the kiss, her free hand fisting the front of Isolde's shirt. The kiss was nothing like the soft, romantic ones she had imagined in her secret fantasies. It was demanding, possessive, almost desperate. Isolde kissed like a woman who had been holding back for far too long, tongue sweeping in, claiming, tasting. Kara moaned softly, melting against the taller woman's solid frame. She felt small, protected, and utterly consumed all at once. Isolde's hand slid down to grip her hip, pulling her even closer as the kiss deepened, turning wetter, hotter. When they finally broke apart for air, both were breathing hard. Isolde rested her forehead against Kara's, eyes closed. "Fuck," she whispered, voice rough with regret and desire. "This can't happen again." Kara's heart cracked even as her body still trembled with want. But before she could respond, Isolde's phone rang, sharp and insistent. The president pulled away completely, composure slamming back into place like armor. "Answer it," Kara said quietly, voice shaky. I'll go." She fled the office before Isolde could see the tears gathering in her brown eyes. That night, alone in her small apartment, Kara touched her swollen lips and whispered into the darkness. "What have I done?"